Hey everyone, I'm out here in the garage and what we're going to be doing today is repairing some engine block threads for the 2008 Acura MDX. So stay tuned. So if you're new to the channel, I just want to welcome you here and hopefully you'll consider subscribing if you like what you see. Also, check out Car Apprentice on Instagram, X, and Facebook. I post lots of pictures and videos on those platforms before I post anything on YouTube. And occasionally I'll post things on those platforms I don't post on YouTube. Also, check out the website at carapprentice.com. And don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video. So one of the holes in the engine block for the engine mount bracket has some damage. So we're going to repair those threads today. So, let's get into it. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to fix the threads in this one bolt hole. I'm also going to chase these threads here. So this one, we're most likely going to tap it, see if that works. If it does not work, we're going to have to replace the threads or repair the threads with an insert. Here is the tap I'm using. It's a 12 by 1.25. So let's do that first. We're going to go ahead and clean this up, and then we'll have a kind of a starting point to fix this hole, hopefully. The reason why I'm chasing all these is because I can kind of see a little bit of debris in there, and I want to make sure that I don't have any issues when I go to reinstall the engine back in the car. Right, so here's a thread chaser. This is a 12 by 1.25. It's going to go right in here. So I'm only going to chase these three. I'm going to tap this one because I can tell, you can see it binds pretty quickly when we try to insert it. To start with, this chaser is clean, so you want to make sure your threads are cleaned off. And I have a couple different options here. I've got Tap Magic, which I use typically for when I'm, a situation like this one where I want to re-tap the threads. I would use Tap Magic. And I also have this 3-in-1 that I use. It's multi-purpose oil. Put a little bit on there. You don't need a ton of it. Then I'll just start this in by hand first. That's going in pretty well. And then I'm just going to grab a wrench. So this is 13 millimeters. Just going to keep turning it. You may want to back it out every once in a while to kind of clear the chips out. But so far it seems to be doing pretty well. I would not use a power tool on this at all. Just do it by hand. Until it bottoms out. You can hear some grittiness in there. But it seems to be doing well. Okay. I'm just going to pull this back out. Okay, so that one looks pretty good. I'm going to get some compressed air. All right, and I'm going to blow this off. You see all the stuff on my hand there. And I'm actually going to go back in one more time just to make sure we're nice and clear. But the first time we did it, that should have been enough. So there's a crack right there. I'm going to keep a very close eye on that as I tap this. It doesn't appear that that crack is really deep or anything, or that there's any sort of a risk of this fracturing further and possibly causing some serious issues with this hole. So I'm going to keep a very close eye on it, but I think we should be okay. So I'm not confident that I can get the tap to go in straight. So what I'm going to do is put this back on and use this as a guide. So I'm going to put in 2 bolts, one over here, and then one diagonal from that one, make it nice and stable. So let me grab an original bolt. Should thread it nicely now that our holes have been cleaned up. Just going to tighten this down after I get the second bolt in. Now I don't have an original bolt left. Two of them are holding the engine up on the stand. And then we have one that has the bad threads on it that came out of this hole down here. So I've got this one tied up here and this one tight down there. Alright, so I've got the tap here. And make sure that's going to go in. Looks like it is. Again, this is just more for alignment purposes. That's why I have this on here. I've got an 8mm. It's got the funky teeth on it, so it's not a true 12 point. That'll fit right over this though. It helped to drive this in. Just gonna kind of check it out here. Yeah, that's not good. Get that back out. So this one we're gonna have to use a Tap Magic. I'm gonna put a little oil on here on like that. It's probably a little too much, but that's fine. So I'm going to start this one in by hand first, if I can. There it goes. Okay, so I got it started. I'm going to go in a few turns, just a couple turns probably, and then back it out. Okay. Come back out. Okay, go back in. Back out. Seems to be doing well so far. I'm running out of real estate with this socket, so I'll have to take this off and finish it up the rest of the way. And then we'll check to make sure that the threads will actually catch with a bolt. If not, like I said, we'll have to put an insert in there. A lot of chips fell out of there. Wow. Okay. Alright, so I've got some bolts installed in here. I'm just going to check for movement. Yeah, that one rocks a little bit. So because we're tightening these down to 65 foot-pounds, this hole is going to be repaired. Also, I mean, this is going to support the engine. It's going to have a ton of vibration and all that. That is not good right there. Alright, so what we're going to use to repair this hole here is the time-sert kit. There are all sorts of kits out there you can get to repair thread damage. I'm going to use this one. I've used this before. This is M12 by 1.25. Part number is 1212. I have another one. This is an M10. I was hoping this would work, but it is only M10. I used that before to repair some threads in an oil pan for a Toyota. That worked out great. So this is probably the most expensive repair option out there, but I've used it before, and I feel comfortable using it. That's going to provide a good repair. That's what it looks like. Open it up. So in the kit, you get 15mm inserts. That's too short for this hole. I don't like that length. I think that's way too short. So I bought some 24mm. So in the kit, you get a few things. So there's a drill. There's a tap. So we're going to tap the hole here after we make our hole with the drill. Tap the hole for our insert. We're also going to countersink the hole so the insert sits nice and flush. So that's what this tool is for. And this is the tool you use to install the insert. So hopefully this will go pretty well, and hopefully it'll go pretty quickly, and we'll get this done. It'll be nice and strong. Alright, so I'm going to go in this hole with the digital calipers right to where the thread's in. Slide that in. Right there. Lock that in place. It's almost 35mm. So the repair sleeve you want to use should fit just fine. Alright, so before I do any work on this hole, I want to verify that these threads are actually 12 by 1.25. I don't want to just install this in here and assume that they were packaged correctly. Go ahead and put that in there. And that looks good. Alright, so I've got the engine mount bracket on here. I put in 3 bolts to make sure this is as close to where it's going to be when it's installed in the engine compartment. I've got the drill bit here. I marked on here about 30 millimeters from the tip on down. Looks like it's a little tight, but that looks like right there is going to square us up pretty well. So I'm just going to drill in part way. Looks like it's probably around 20 millimeters. I'm going to drill in part way, stop, take the bracket off, and finish out the hole. Alright, so I've got a little bit of WD-40. That's what's recommended. Come back out. Okay. So I'm going to take this off now and we will drill out the hole the rest of the way. Alright, so I'm going to blow the chips I've created so far out of there. Go back with some more WD-40. Okay, so I switched to my small impact. The other drill that I was using was a little too powerful, I think. I just couldn't really control it very well, so I'm going to try this out. So I've got 11 millimeter on there. It's 12 point. Yeah, that worked much better. I think that looks pretty good. Alright, so I'm going to use the counter bore on this. I'm going to go nice and slow. Now, there is a little bit of a step in there, so I'm going to see how this works out. I'm just trying to test fit it right now. It looks like it's going to be interesting to cut that. So there is, probably barely see it, but right there, that's where we want to stop. So I'm going to use this again. I think that's good. Okay, back to the WD-40. There's our tap. And I've got a tap wrench. I'll tighten that down. Alright, so this is marked at 30 millimeters. I already started to do this, so it'll go in all the way. I'm going to put a little more WD-40 in there. I cleaned some of it off. And go back in. Make sure it's nice and straight. There we go. And then periodically come back out. It's getting tough there. Come back out. May not have drilled in far enough initially. I think I'm going to stop right there just to make sure. We don't have to go all the way in. I think we're pretty close. Last thing I want to do is have this crack. Wow, that is a lot of chips. All right, so I'm not sure how well you can see this, but there's our mark. I ended up somewhere around, probably about right there. Right up here. That is about 28 millimeters, so I think we're in good shape. All right, so the driver that I'm using is almost the same size as the insert. Normally the driver is a little bit longer than the inserts because, as you saw in the kit, they're 15 millimeter inserts. It would normally stick out like this, about 1/4 of an inch when you're finished driving it in. I'm going to mark right here on the driver where I should stop, more or less. All right, so the instructions said use a little bit of driver oil or 30 weight motor oil. I'm just going to use some of this 3-in-1 oil here and put that on here, right there on the threads of the driver. So I know a lot of people like to use thread locker on these, so you can go with red or orange. Orange doesn't require any sort of heat if you ever have to remove this. So I'm going to go with no thread locker. Just put it in this way. Start it in. So use a tap wrench. It's going to be interesting to see where this ends up because of that step inside the hole. All right, so we've got it countersunk at least for now. Okay, so the insert has stopped moving, and now I'm just going to drive it in the rest of the way. All right, it's nice and tight. It's down to our line, our mark that we made. So I'm going to back this out now. Okay, so our insert is in there. All right, so we're going to try this out, see if our bolt goes in there correctly. All right, so that's in. The hole feels straight, it just feels stiff for some reason. It might be just because of the different material. The insert is made of steel. Of course, the block is aluminum. So on this bolt in particular, I may put a little bit of anti-seize on it. I'm not sure about that, but so far it looks pretty good. All right, so there you have it. There's repairing the threads on the engine block for the 2008 Acura MDX. And so as you saw here, I used a time-sert kit. That's the one I felt the most comfortable with and one that I'd used before. There are a ton of kits out there to choose from, so you might want to do some research, maybe watch a few YouTube videos and see what's going to work best for you in your situation. So this engine block is done at this point. It is ready to go back in the car. I do have a couple other things to tackle before I can install it, and then hopefully we'll have the car back on the ground pretty soon and running. So hopefully this information was helpful, and thanks for watching.